Well, good evening. We're down to the last evening of our week of prayer on last day events. Thank you for any part of it that you've watched. I know it's a lot maybe to watch every night. So it's an honor. I have no idea really who's out there, if anybody. But if you're here watching, then you're involved. And we're going to wrestle with one of the great subjects tonight, is the Millennium. So thank you for being a part of this, and then we'll be at church again tomorrow at 12 o'clock. That'll be live, going out over our network, so I hope that'll all go well. One of my oldest stories goes back to, 20 years plus, when I first came to La Sierra University Church. Boys were little, and I did this huge wedding looking out over Laguna Niguel at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, 5-star hotel. It's out on the kind of the balcony grass area there, looking out over the ocean. It's spectacular. 6-figure wedding. There's doves flying. An orchestra is amazing. And they gave us as a gift 3 days staying at this 5-star hotel. So we thought, fine, okay. The first morning, Hilda had granola and something. She said, Dan, we need a glass of orange juice and a spoon. I thought, let's try room service. How much are you going to get it? Never tried room service before or since. So we got the orange juice and a spoon, $13. Those two things, 20 years ago. So Hilda said, Dan, I don't think we can eat here for these 3 days. So we looked at the menu, hopeless. So she said, let's go into town, get picnic food, and come, and we can look out over the ocean and eat our picnic. So I got the car. We rode up, all of us, down into Laguna Niguel. Trying to be healthy, we got fat-free bread, fat-free cheese, and some fat-free fig Newtons. Brought a bag, parked the car, paid money for tips to everybody, got out to the front. We're sitting looking over this ocean. The worst picnic food. I mean, this fat-free stuff was terrible. All of a sudden, the rich guy who was paying for our hotel walks by. He says, what are you guys doing? I said, we couldn't afford to eat in there, so we went and got some picnic food. He said, no. We already paid for everything. Don't worry, go on in, eat what you want. That's all paid for. I said, here I was, surrounded by grace, everything covered, everything paid for, and I'm out here living on my own works, trying to eat this terrible food. Well, I did another wedding not long ago at Laguna Niguel. 2 of us shared it. And put all those memories back. This time I know better. They were paying for all the meals, and we just enjoyed. It's all covered. And as we launch into the subject of the Millennium, I just want to start with that. We're going to get in. It's all covered. Jesus already cried out, it is finished. It's ready to go. We can walk in the door. It's already settled. So let's start with that. The last minute or two of almost every movie that has a violent war theme of some kind, it ends up everything is peaceful. Maybe the guy gets the girl and they go off on a vacation. If you're watching Lord of the Rings, this is several times in the several movies, they just stop, the wars stop, and everyone goes back to Rivendell or Rohan, these great oases. They filmed them in New Zealand. Now there's so many people going to New Zealand, they're trying to close some of these areas. It's so beautiful and so peaceful, and they build these castles, and the food is great, and everything is lovely, and there's music, and the beds are soft, and you can't get hurt. Nothing bad ever comes in these little moments of vacation. And everyone wants to go there. You watch Avatar, everyone said, I want to go to Pandora. Where's Pandora? As I said the other day, I'm not a big expert on James Bond movies, but I know at the end there's always these moments he's somewhere. And he has a little break, typically with a beautiful girl, before the world goes to hell and he has to go back to fight again. Little vacation. It's one of the Bourne movies. In the middle of the movie, he's picked up this girl and they're running crazy all over Europe. I finally said, you've got to go. And they say goodbye. I don't know till ever see each other again. End of the movie. He gets his way to a Greek island and walks in the door where she is selling scooters, renting scooters. And he finds her again. Finishes the movie. Julia Roberts, I think Notting Hill. She's a superstar. He's an average guy at the bookstore. And after 2 hours of craziness, they get together and they get married. And at the end of the movie, they're sitting in a park and she's pregnant and he's reading a book to her. When we do a mission trip, we have learned over the years, you cannot just work on the cement all day and then do evangelism at night and expect everyone to be happy. You can't. So somewhere near there has to be a break. And then at the end, we add in a 2 or 3 day retreat. And we were supposed to be going this week. I was supposed to be in Philippines today. But next year, we moved it all down a year. We're going to go to El Nido Island in the Philippines and spend 2 or 3 days. Little vacation after working so hard every day. They take me in Africa after working like crazy. At Salusi University, they let me go to Victoria Falls. Spectacular. We go to Vietnam, and 3 or 4 times now we always say, okay, we want to end at Halong Bay. We're north of Hanoi, almost to China. And you drive 3 hours from Hanoi, and it's just exquisite. And we're on a boat, and the water is calm, and we have 2 or 3 days vacation. And in the book of Revelation, after the 4 horses and all the beasts and all the drama and war and great controversy, finally we get down to Revelation 19, and it says there's going to be a wedding. And if you have stayed with God through all of the beasts and everything, it said, be thou faithful unto death. Then Jesus says, you're going to marry Jesus. Then there's going to be a wedding banquet. And then there's going to be a honeymoon. And that's the 1,000 years with Jesus. It's a honeymoon. After the wedding, we get to be with Jesus. You watch any love movie, you watch Titanic, and you can feel between Jack and Rose this longing. And just this one day they're together, longing to be together. Lovers. God is a lover. And Jesus, after he had gone to heaven, decided to go back down. Didn't have to do that. Comes back down out of heaven and spends 40 days with the disciples. There's no more preaching. Not walking from place to place. He's not doing miracles. He's just hanging with his disciples. Eating by the seashore. Teaching and just being together. And that's what the 40 years symbolize, or the 1,000 years with Jesus in heaven. The honeymoon. And C.S. Lewis says he wants all your best moments down here, your best friends, you're camping, you're sitting at a campfire. He wants that to be a taste of what the 1,000 years will be like to be with Jesus. He wants the Sabbath to be a taste of that. So here we are, ready to do the Millennium. I'm going to try to do a chart. Usually I do this with human people on a platform and we bring people up. I can't do that here. But let's do the best we can to give you a quick snapshot. Most of you have grown up and studied this, and then we'll begin to look at it from the character of God perspective. We are what they call premillennialists. We believe that Christ comes at the beginning of the millennium. Other people, not many, are postmillennialists. They believe that we will usher in our own 1,000 years, and then Christ will come at the end. And there's amillennial, that it's all kind of a metaphor. So this millennial chart starts with really the first coming is Jesus coming on the cross, and then the great resurrection sets everything else up. And then we move into the final showdown we've been talking about all week. As God allows all the evil to now become maxed out and show the world the truth about Satan and his character. And at the same time, we have the 3 angels' messages going all over the world. And then God's make a final choice. Are you in or are you out? You will either be fighting with Christ or fighting against Christ. There's no middle ground. You're one or the other. Hardcore, white hot, either way. Then the close of probation when everyone has made a final choice. 7 last plagues. Battle of Armageddon we studied last night. And now we have the second coming. So that begins our millennium. We are premillennialists. Christ begins the millennium. Here's the cloud the size of a man's hand coming from the east. You know the story. And of course the resurrection. This is the first resurrection. You can imagine. Here's where my father is. I've done 150 funerals out here at Crestlawn. It's our cemetery. I've done others in Riverside, but mostly here. Every once a week we usually go out, maybe sometimes Sabbath morning, and we walk around 3 times. My dad is on that hill. Maybe someday we'll be there. First resurrection, to hear the voice of God. Jesus said, because I live, you also will live. This is the first resurrection. Second coming, first resurrection. We believe there are 2 resurrections. One is a resurrection to life. The other one, a resurrection to death or judgment, 1,000 years apart. Because the Bible said some raised up at the first resurrection, but the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were over. It's logical. Some are here, the rest are down here. So we put the 2 together. So now we have the 1,000 years that has begun. Righteous are gone to heaven. We're reigning with Christ. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Reigning with Christ, judging the world. Now we have this Revelation 20, Satan being bound for 1,000 years. We don't know exactly all the details of that. We don't think it's a bottomless pit. It doesn't mean a hole down to China. The Greek word is abyssos, or abyss. It is the same Greek word they use at creation when the world was without form and void. In the Greek version of the Bible, it's the same word. The world is a mess. It's the pit. It's where Satan is bound and where Satan and the demons come from. The abyss, the pit. It just means he's stuck there. It doesn't mean that he is bound by human chains. It's chains of circumstance. There's nothing else for him to do. The righteous are in heaven, the wicked are dead. Here he is with all his fellow demons. This is not camping out and hanging out together and singing Kumbaya. Demons are evil. There's nothing good in them, and they are nothing but fighting and bickering and blaming for 1,000 years in the darkness of this world. 1,000 years. And the 1,000 years are over now. We have, you could call it the third coming. We don't usually call it that, but that's what it is. City of New Jerusalem comes floating down out of the sky. I can hardly wait. We're inside, but boy, I wish I could see this. Watch that city, the cube. Some paintings have it as a cube coming down out of the sky and out of the universe. And now we have the other resurrection. The rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were over. Now they rise. This is the second resurrection. You don't want that. All else, make sure you're in the first resurrection. That's all that really matters. Now the Satan was bound because there was no one here. Now he is free. And the Bible says he's loosed. And he gathers everyone around the city of heaven. He's hated God for thousands of years. Now's their chance to get him. All the great war generals and mafia and everyone are all there. In the middle of all that, God has the great white throne judgment. Revelation 20, verse 9 on. We believe somewhere there'll be this video, and at the end of that video, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. This is the end of the great controversy, when everyone is acknowledging that God was right. And then we can talk about the fire. Probably can't solve all of that tonight. I have some views about that. The Bible calls it the lake of fire. This is the second death. First death is the one we die of sleep. We're going to wake up again from that. Second death is forever. I think Jesus died the second death in our place. And then the great moment when God starts it all over again. The world has been cleansed by fire, and he makes a new heavens and a new earth. Revelation 21, 22. Talk more about that tomorrow. Pour my heart into the heaven. So that's the kind of the 2-minute sweep of Millennium. But now the hard question. Why? Why does God have to have this whole last doctrine? As a young pastor, I used to think, because if I had to give up any doctrine, I could give up the Millennium. Just a chart. Just a lot of details, and if it turns out we didn't get it exactly right, who cares? As long as we get in, who cares if you had the chart right? But boy, the more I've studied it out over the years, and the more I come from a character of God perspective, it's critical. It's critical. God has to make sure that every question has been answered. Everything came around again to begin the first time from Lucifer having a questions in heaven. Was God really fair? Is God really right? Do we have to do it this way? Why is he God and why am I not God? And all these questions. Do you really need to have a relationship with that God in order to live? Satan says, no, you do not. You will not surely die. You will be as gods if you don't stay away from God. God's been sitting up in heaven, watching all the terrible things that are going on in our world. Terrible virus right now. Watching people suffer. Tsunamis and war and cancer and heart attacks and diabetes and all these other terrible things. I've pastored 45 years. I have seen it all. So many hard things. Now we have this virus. Every night we see these numbers get bigger. Watch on the news, the newspaper. It's terrible. My friend, he's okay. He's home. Scared to death on Friday. He's an ER doctor. He's taking care of people. They're coming into ER and he gets it himself. Called him on Friday. His wife said, Pastor Dan, anyway, I know you've been gone a long time, but you're still his pastor. Can you call him? He could hardly talk, fighting for breath. He got out. Now he's quarantined at home. We're going to try to talk again tomorrow. 20-year-old girl down the street here. Working at this nursing home in Magnolia. One person came to work last week. They had to empty the whole place. 70, 80 patients had to be moved all over the county. And the 20-year-old girl died. God's watching all that. Can't stand it. We have these numbers. 30,000 die, 50,000 die, 100,000 die. But those are people, families, suffering. Can't even have a funeral. It's difficult. Well, God's up in heaven. Doesn't want to go through this again. And Nahum 1:9 says he will bring it to an end. The trouble will not arise a second time. But the problem is, God's not going to take free choice away. There's always the chance. One more Lucifer pop. There was no reason for it the first time. And now God has to find a way to be sure we don't do this again. The vote has to be 108 billion to 0. They think 108 billion people have lived, give or take. Has to be 108 billion to 0 for God. That all makes sense. Every question answered. So there'll be no more Lucifer, no more diabetes, heart attack, war, trouble, famine, divorce, or virus. God's got to put some firewalls in. When we're talking about hackers who bring viruses into the computers, you have to have firewalls, series of firewalls. At the computer companies, everywhere there have to be firewalls. And the Millennium is one of God's firewalls to be sure we never do this again. It's good news. And God has a plan. I'm proud of the Adventist Church and the way we have put together the Millennium. We're the only ones that have it this particular way. And I'm proud. We have to find a way to be sure we never do this again. God can't stand it one more time. He never sleeps. He has no scar tissue. He just feels the pain intensely all the time. Yeah. So, there's a few questions that have to be answered. I think this question gets asked even before the second coming. And Satan and the other demons come back at God and they say, you're not fair. It's just not fair. You said if you eat of the tree, you will surely die. And we got everyone to eat of the tree. And now, you're not making them all die, God. You're taking them off to heaven. It's not fair, God. You're not fair. What we said was true. You're not fair. And God has to come back with an answer and said, it is fair. The one who created them all went down and died in their place. One died for them all. And every single one of the people I'm taking has chosen me by their own free choice. I didn't coerce them. I did not use any of the things that you have used. I have only used love and goodness and truth and mercy. And they've chosen me. And I'm taking them, and it's fair. And all the unfallen beings and the angels and everybody have to say, okay, you're right. Romans 3:25 and 26, huge passage. He is both one who justifies and is just. God doesn't want to just save us and justify us. He wants to do it in a just way and answer the question. So no one can have a comeback at him and say, well, now we're in the 1,000 years and we're in heaven. Someone raises their hand at the press conference and says to God, my son isn't here, God. Where's my son? I know he wasn't perfect. But he didn't have the same chance everyone else had, God. He didn't get to go to Christian school like some. His father wasn't in the church like some. He had some questions, God. You're going to keep someone out of heaven because they have some questions? God is standing there, has an answer. He said, go to the books. He says, if you go to the books, you will see we did everything we could. We sent Holy Spirit, we sent angels, we sent people, we sent missionaries. We sent hundreds and thousands of chances for him. We didn't know what else to do to bring him over the line. And at the end of the research, that mother has to say, okay, God, I understand. I didn't know. Another question. God says, okay, you're next. And that person says, God, what's she doing here, God? You know what she did to me, God? She cheated on me. She used 4-letter words. She was drinking. She left the church. She lived a crazy life, God. She hurt me. She has no right to be here. I thought the angels were writing all this stuff down, God. How did you leave all that out? Maybe my brothers and I asked God, what about this man, God, that killed our father? Our father, 72, walking on a sidewalk, did nothing wrong. Crazy man drives up on the sidewalk and kills him. Hit and run, God. We didn't know who it was. Now he's here in heaven. How can this man be in heaven with our father? God says, yeah, I know about that. Take him out to dinner. He changed. He woke up. He asked for forgiveness. We go out to dinner and found out he's amazing. We get him and my father together. They're great together. They forgive each other. It's done. So we have to say at the end of that, looks like you got that one right too, God. One by one, the questions get answered. Then God looks over, here's another one. Okay, it's your turn. We never got to see your face, God. My grandson, he's just found it hard to believe. Never get to see your face. We never get to hear your voice. We never get to see the city. You're too quiet, God. It's just hard to believe without a little more something to help us believe. My grandson would be here. God, okay. I had to be careful down there to protect people's free choice. But now that we're here, you want to see what will happen if we show up? I'll do it. Bring the city down, wake everyone up. There's the city, there's the voice, there he is. Doubt no more. Doors open. No one changes. No one changes sides, no one comes in. No one was forced to believe. All right, God, looks like you got that one. Now we're getting to the end of the 1,000 years, and there's one more question. Someone raises their hand and says, God, can people leave? Some people say it's a little boring here, God. They don't get to do some of the stuff they got to do before. Can they leave, or are they cooped up here forever, God? Can people change their mind? Walk out of here? God says, the door is open. Behold, I have set before you an open door. You can always come in, and you can always go out. It's up to you. There are those who think it won't be much fun in heaven. Mark Twain is probably the most famous one who wrote jokes about it. Here you can see, go to heaven for the climate, but go to hell for the company. He said all the things that you don't want to do, everyone that you hate, that's what you have to do in heaven. Gardening, going to school, singing hymns all the time. All the stuff you like to do down here, you don't get to do there. You don't get to cuss, you don't get to drink, you don't get to smoke, you don't get to gamble. He said, why does anyone want to go? Too bad. No, we would say heaven will not be boring. Heaven will be greater. C.S. Lewis says every pleasure down here is just a taste of what God is going to allow us to do, give it to us to do for every second of every day forever. So all the greatest pleasures, whether it's snow skiing or whitewater rafting or travel or food or music or making love, whatever it is, the greatest pleasures we have down here are like the Baskin-Robbins, the pink spoon. And God says, if you enjoy that, let me give it to you for 1,000 years. We will not be bored in heaven. This is not harps. This is not sitting and staring at God for 1,000 years. You can't get more intense pleasure every second than heaven. We'll talk about heaven more tomorrow. Now we have the third coming. You know the story, city of Jerusalem coming down and the wicked. Now the wicked are going to rise. And we have to ask the question, when God has all the wicked dead, why would you wake them up again? When we were raising our little boys, they told us, you should wake them up every couple hours, get them on our schedule. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Someone else finally said, well, if he's asleep, let him sleep. We agreed with that. So if they're all asleep, why would God wake them up? Because God has to make sure that He has every vote. He already has the votes from the unfallen worlds and whoever else is out there. God is just. Now during the 1,000 years, He has the votes of all the people who've been saved. They've asked every question. He has all those votes. There's one group left, even though they're dead. He wants their votes too. He wants everybody to know that everybody voted, who's ever lived. And so He wakes them up. The rest of the dead live not again. We call this the second resurrection. You don't want to be in that. So we go through these events now. City of the New Jerusalem comes down, Revelation 21. Now Satan has everyone here. You can imagine the army that he has. Here's Hitler, Napoleon, Genghis Khan, mafia, drug warlords. All the people who rebelled against God and used violence for the last thousands of years, every war, they're all there. Satan has hated God for thousands of years. Been battling Him long distance or when Jesus was here in person. Thought he had Him in the grave, but Jesus came out of there. Tried to throw Him off cliffs. Tried to get Him in the wilderness. Been fighting God all kinds of ways for all these years. And now God is right there in His sights. After 1,000 years, He is seething in anger. He mobilizes every demon and all the wicked. Okay, here, let's go. And now we have one of the great moments, the defining moment of the great controversy, except for the cross. Now God is going to have what is called the Great White Throne Judgment. Who can paint this? Revelation 20. And now we have the sixth question. We weren't there, God. Others got to see the cross. Maybe if we'd seen it, we could have done it. But you didn't let us see it, God. They got to see it. All we had was movies and a story. It's not fair, God. God says, okay. Let me wind the reel back and we're going to watch it. And on this mammoth screen for billions of people to see around the world. How that's going to work, I don't know. And God's going to take us back. I watched the Passion movie. This is going to be better than that. That was as real as they could get. Horrifying, some parts of it. And now we go back in real time, in virtual reality, as if you were there, and we can see Jesus going to the garden, loading up all of our sins on him. We go to the trials, we go to the whipping, feel it, watch it, huge screen. Crown of thorns, spitting in his face, carrying the cross up the mountain, nailing it down, all of it. And down in the front, people begin to sing the old rugged cross. Amazing grace. These great songs, how great thou art. We're down in the front, we begin to cry, we lay our crowns down and we bow. And then even the wicked, they chose. When the choice was there and God says choose, he put the truth about God and the truth about evil, they chose the other side. They took Satan's lies, says you will not surely die. They thought they could sin and get away with it and rebel against God. And now they have to admit they chose wrong. God was who he said he was. And the Christians were right. And God was right. And God is love. And they began to bow. The demons, they were in heaven. They knew who God was. They chose to go another way. And fighting against God, they finally bow. The great verse, Philippians 2, every knee will bow, every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. And you know that there's one more in the back. The one who started it all with those first few lies about God. Could have had an eternity of peace and harmony with God. Love everywhere. Chose his own way. Sees the story of the cross one more time and the resurrection, and he has to bow too. And now the vote is complete. Satan doesn't do it because he has to. It's free choice. Everyone is bowing down to God. God is love. We know the truth. He never changed. He never gave up his character, never compromised his character one time. Always true to love and goodness and character and grace and mercy. And he won the battle on his term, not Satan's. God is love, goes everywhere. Universe is complete. Worshiping God. That's why the Millennium doctrine is so important. It's firewalls. That's what will keep the universe safe, because everyone has admitted God was right. Every question has been answered. It's going to be an amazing night. Don't miss that night. When that night comes, there's no party down here that is worth missing that night and being on the front. And that's really the question, isn't it? Will you be in the front or be in the back? Everyone's going to bow. You're going to bow. But would you bow in front? Will you be part of that first group that bows down and puts their crown in front of God and worships God? Or will you be one of the ones in the back that has to do it through clenched teeth, wrenched out of their soul? Is there anything that could happen? Some politics in the church, some disaster, something that doesn't feel fair, doesn't feel right, some question that could come up that you don't have an answer to, and you could get out. End up in the back. Or can you say tonight, the end of this week of prayer, I am in, God. I will stand up. Not Pilate. Not like Pilate. I will stand up for God. Even if the crowd is roaring, crucify him, crucify him, you can count on me, God. I will be in the front and I will be standing up for you. I will bow in the front. Finish a story I've told 1,000 times. I don't have any balloons here, but there was a man, always had a bunch of balloons. They called him the Balloon Man. He went to a fair, he put in a name for a drawing, and he won a free cruise at an ocean cruise. for a week. So we got in a taxi with all his balloons. He went down there. Everybody else had balloons too, but when they got on the boat and the boat left, they let their balloons go. He kept his. He's the balloon man. Came time for dinner, 6 o'clock. He had a right to go. Tried to go down the hallway, but he couldn't go. Too many balloons. Never mind, I'll sit on the deck here and eat cheese and crackers. 9, 10 o'clock came time to go to his room. He had a free room, couldn't get in. Too many balloons. Never mind, I'll sleep out here on the deck with a blanket. Every day for a week, cheese and crackers on the deck, sleeping on the deck. Finally, the last day, got an engraved invitation to dine at the captain's table. Oh, he didn't want to miss that. But what about the balloons? Story says finally at 5 o'clock, he went to the back of the boat. For the first time in years, he opened his hand and let the balloons go. It's hard. Watched them as they left. But now he was free. And he could go into his room and change into his tuxedo and go and dine at the captain's table. You and I have an invitation to dine at the captain's table someday. Cloud is going to come. We have a chance to be with God forever. Settle it. Settle it today. You will not miss that. And your family, everyone, not one missing. God bless you all. See you tomorrow, 12 o'clock, for the final message about heaven to finish this series. God bless you.